Hello everyone, my name is Mondy and I do vlogs about my daily life as a tech consultant, romanticizing life as a connoisseur and creative. In this vlog, I will show you what my family and I did on an extended weekend trip to Paris. I came up with a very fun idea to elevate our experiences and reduce arguments on this trip. I went on this 3-day trip with my mom and my sister and told each to plan out the itinerary of one day and to be the tour guide for the day. We drove from Frankfurt to Paris by car and arrived after 6 hours. Since it was my initiative to let everyone plan out one whole day, I saw the responsibility to take over the second day and let my sister guide us through the first arrival day because I was aware that we would lose a few hours on the way. So for the first stop, my sister found this designer outlet called La Vallée on the way to Paris City. We really enjoyed this outlet center and spent a few hours here. They offer a lot of high-end brands such as Bottega Veneta, Balenciaga and Miu Miu, but also premium labels such as Sandro. After a while, we needed a break and had some ice cream. We opted for mango, Earl Grey and pistachio, my all-time favorite flavor. After boosting our energy with some sugar, we continued shopping and left this outlet center with a few purchases. After our first stop, we made our way to central Paris, checked into our Airbnb and headed to dinner. We went to the seafood place that we visited a few years ago and couldn't believe how much our order for 3 people was. We thought the waiters made a mistake, but this dinner was worth every euro. At this point, I noticed how romanticized Paris is portrayed on social media. I feel the obligatory first meal in Paris is a croissant, but did you know that Paris has so much more to offer? For some unfamiliar with seafood or for vegetarians, excusez-moi, this footage could be a bit gross or disturbing, but for me, this was the real deal. Actually, we ordered so much that we could only finish maybe half of it, but took the leftovers home. But because there's always room for dessert, we made a stop at this crepe vendor. Instead of crepes, we decided to try out a sweet galette, which is made out of buckwheat flour instead of wheat flour, which makes it a bit healthier. But to be honest, due to its granular texture, it tasted very dry for me. On the way back home, we saw this bar on the streets and I felt I was beamed into my Reels feed. Day 2 was my turn of being the tour guide. My initial plan was to grab some pastries at the viral bakery called Guerlain, but didn't make it due to our scheduled activity in the morning. I want to make more hands-on memories and therefore booked a mini perfume workshop with Fragonard at the Musée du Parfum. Since it was only 45 minutes long, I must say that we didn't learn much new about fragrances and perfume making, but the cool thing was that we got to create and keep our own perfume creations. Based on the newest fragrance edition of Fragonard, we were able to create our own perfume using the 3 notes, the base, the heart and the head note, and adjust the ratios to our liking in order to create our personalized scents. Afterwards, we decided to take a look at Guerlain, the bakery, on my first agenda point, but seeing the queue, we quickly agreed on not waiting for 1.5 hours, given that we were starving already, but go to the next boulangerie. We grabbed a few pastries and walked to the Jardin des Tuileries. We continued strolling through the streets. We went into a few shops and my sister grabbed an iced Americano at the YSL pop-up cafe before we had our lunch reservation in the Marais area. I found the spot called Carboni or Carboni's on my Insta feed and immediately saved it. I was just in awe stepping into the restaurant. Beautiful ambiances and interiors just get me every time. We had this burrata as an appetizer and it was delightful. I just love experiencing new flavor compositions such as this combination of the creamy burrata, sweet and tangy orange, and spicy za'atar. But what actually drove me towards this restaurant was this cacio e pepe pasta, which unfortunately looked nicer than it actually tasted. The flavors were a bit too packed and the noodles were a bit too chewy for my liking. Also, I was a bit disappointed that the egg yolk dropped out of place when the waiter served it. It just wasn't what I expected to be, referring to that one Instagram post I saw. To digest the food, we discovered the neighborhood Malais, which we were in love with. After some time, we decided to try out the supposedly best crêperie called Braised Cafe. According to my agenda, we would have gone back to the area where we started our day. But I must say, I don't have the best sense of orientation and wasn't aware that this itinerary would have been a bit inconvenient and inefficient. That's why my sister took over the guidance and suggested to stay in this area. We got a bit hungry from all the walking and settled down in this umusubi place. In the meanwhile, my mom sneaked out of the stores already and got herself a pain au chocolat. I saw this very girl with the huge croissant in her hand. But my mom, she actually just went into the store without knowing. Since we had an abundant lunch already, we wanted to keep our dinner simple. On our way back to our Airbnb, we saw this Chinese comfort food bistro and decided to have a pre-dinner there. For our proper dinner, we still had to eat up all of our leftover seafood from yesterday, so we made ourselves comfortable at our Airbnb and called it a day. Day 3. Today is the day I was most looking forward to. It was my mom's turn to decide on the agenda, which I was very excited but even more skeptical about, given she had never ever took over the guide. Do you know the people that pretend to be very considerate and adaptable, but really they are just too lazy to plan the day? That's usually my mom. So for the first stop, she took us to a very nostalgic place called Best Tofu. Paris actually has a big Chinese community, and that's where I actually felt it. When I stepped into this tiny breakfast spot, I instantly felt the buzz and noise of China, but the food, oh hell, the food over-trumped everything. This even might have been the best meal I had on this entire trip, also considering the price performance. We couldn't limit ourselves, so we ordered everything that spoke to us. The highlight goes to this tofu dish called douhua or tofu nao. It's a common Chinese breakfast dish that's either served sweet, which comes with a peppermint aroma, or savory with soy sauce. This breakfast made us very happy and fulfilled, and it was so good that we even took some back to Germany on our last day. Afterwards, my mom announced her next agenda point, Versailles, which she was so excited about. It was so cute. She told us that she wanted to go to Versailles since 30 years, ever since she came to Europe and could finally make it. I must say, I'm not a big fan of crowded tourist places, but the palace was truly jaw-dropping. A little history excerpt. The Palace of Versailles served as the seat of power for French kings, particularly Louis XIV, who transformed it into a symbol of absolute monarchy. The visit allowed us to immerse ourselves in the history and politics of the time, gaining insights into the lavish lifestyle of the royal court, the palace's exquisite design, intricate details, and the iconic Hall of Mirrors created such a breathtaking visual experience. We then saw this idyllic and romantic lake and really wanted to rent a boat, but had to rush to our book tour. We also booked a guided tour after exploring it by ourselves for 2 hours. And then we made our way back to central Paris and had our late lunch/dinner. My mom made her research on Little Red Book, 小红书, which is the Chinese equivalent to Instagram or Pinterest, and she decided on this Parisian brasserie called Farmall. We must say that the food really wasn't good and came in minutes after our order. On the one hand, we were very happy about the fast order, but on the other, it really felt like pre-made canteen food. We just felt the food wasn't prepared with heart. But also, we were tempted to try out the French toast on the dessert menu. I found it so funny. We always leave a tiny piece behind, and that's an etiquette in China actually. Do not completely empty the plate, but leave a rest to not show greediness. After this, the weather made a turn, and we decided to hide ourselves in a mall. We felt it was too early to go back home, so we decided to visit the famous Café de Flore, which was such an overhyped and overpriced place. We had a cheese plate and a hot chocolate, and finally also did some people watching. On the last day, we visited a few remaining spots we've saved. We still needed to try the best croissant that supposedly could be found at Chez Meunier. So we grabbed some sweet pastries and also a baguette and quiche from this bakery and had our quick, sporadic breakfast in the car. Afterwards, we were headed to a flea market. This flea market seemed quite crappy, so we decided to leave it very soon. I still wanted to visit this very romantic bookshop, so we did that and went to another vintage store nearby. I feel you cannot thrift in Paris. Here it is called vintage shopping. All the vintage stores are so curated and they set their prices so high, which doesn't feel like thrifting anymore to me. I don't know, I'm the type of thrifter that feels the joy by finding some treasures between rackets of old clothes. This sort of gives me the feeling of accomplishment, but not when I purchase some designer pieces where I know I got exploited for 10 times as the buy-in price. After this, my sister guided us to our lunch place she found on Google Maps. Can highly recommend the spot. We then randomly saw these eye-catching ice cones and immediately went into the store. It was Lebanese ice cream topped with pistachio on the outside, which we never had seen before. Whilst heading somewhere I don't even remember anymore, we saw many white tents along the road and found a super nice flea market randomly. They had so many nice stuffs. I found this Burberry coat for only 200 euros, which was such a good deal compared to those curated vintage designer stores. We spent a few hours there and felt very accomplished and lucky to have found the spot. You know, sometimes the best places can be found by just walking unintentionally but attentionally through the streets. Before making our way back to Germany to end our trip, we had our last supper at this Chinese Cantonese restaurant. It fits so well to the comments I've received under my last video saying that I should try in one color diet. Because this dinner literally was one color. And then the hell broke loose. From 0 to 100, the hot sunny weather turned into this typhoon. I thought, what a better way to end this trip and say au revoir to Paris. So that's it for this video. I hope you found some inspiration and I highly encourage you guys to plan your next trip collaboratively, letting everyone plan out one entire itinerary for a day. This will make you experience the city from another perspective and let you step out of your comfort zone. Because I've noticed everyone is so unique and has different preferences, even while traveling. Planning your trip jointly, even you aren't traveling solo, brought us so much joy and reduced arguments by a lot. So thank you for watching and see you on my next video.